On a moonless night in June 1730, somewhere in the vast darkness of the Atlantic Ocean, 25 enslaved Africans made a choice that would echo through the annals of resistance. They would seize their floating prison or die trying. Armed with nothing but improvised weapons and desperate courage, they rose against their captors aboard the slave ship Chesapeake, transforming the vessel's hold from a place of human cargo into a battlefield where freedom would be won at any cost. Welcome to Historic Crimes TV, where you get the true story of events that have happened in the past, which helped shape the history of the world that we are living in. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers. Help me show her that real-life stories like this matter and deserve to be heard by liking the video. Where you're watching from, share it with someone, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The Chesapeake was a British slave ship operating during the height of the Atlantic slave trade. In the spring of 1730, the vessel had loaded its human cargo from somewhere along the West African coast, likely present-day Senegal or Gambia, and set sail for the American colonies. Below deck, approximately 100 enslaved Africans were chained in the suffocating darkness, enduring conditions designed to maximize profit while barely sustaining life. Among the captives were men who refused to accept their fate. Despite speaking different languages and coming from different ethnic groups, they found ways to communicate, to plan, to organize. The ringleaders managed to coordinate their efforts while shackled in the fetid hold, passing messages during the brief moments when they were brought up for exercise or when the crew distributed meager rations. The enslaved conspirators faced enormous obstacles. They were outnumbered by the armed crew. They were weakened by starvation, disease, and the brutal conditions of the Middle Passage. They were chained and shackled. They had no knowledge of navigation or sailing. They possessed no weapons beyond what they could fashion or steal. Yet they plotted anyway. On the chosen night, the revolt began with stunning coordination. The enslaved men had somehow managed to break or pick their shackles, a feat that required both physical strength and careful planning to avoid detection. When a signal came, they burst from the hold in a coordinated assault. The details that survive suggest a violent, chaotic battle. The rebels armed themselves with whatever they could find or had secretly prepared. Pieces of broken wood, tools stolen from the ship, perhaps knives taken from the galley. Their primary advantages were surprise, desperation, and the moral conviction of people fighting for their very humanity. The crew of the Chesapeake fought back with muskets and cutlasses, but the rebels had chosen their moment well, possibly during a watch change when fewer crew members were on deck. The fighting was brutal in close quarters. According to surviving accounts, the enslaved rebels killed several crew members in the initial assault, including possibly the captain or first mate. For a brief, extraordinary moment, the enslaved Africans controlled the deck of the ship that had been their prison. But controlling the ship and knowing how to sail it to freedom were two different things. The rebels faced a cruel dilemma. They were now masters of a vessel they couldn't navigate, floating on an ocean they didn't know, with no clear path to freedom. Without knowledge of their exact position, the wind patterns, or how to work the complex rigging of an 18th century sailing ship, their victory was incomplete. What happened next is that some of the surviving crew members regained control through force, compelled the rebels that they would sail the ship back to Africa, but the ship, badly damaged and with many dead on both sides, eventually made it to America's ports. The rebellion was ultimately suppressed. The consequences for the survivors were severe. Those who survived the revolt itself faced torture, execution, and sale to particularly brutal plantation regimes as punishment and deterrent to others. Do you think they would have sailed successfully back to Africa if they know how to navigate the ship? Drop your comment below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.